button, and we are live. Hello and welcome to. Yep, I've got the right microphone. Let's drone out. Tonight we are chatting to the devs of Butterflight. I can't believe it is Butterflight, and we have the usual team of Let's drone out. There's very few of us. We got Andy RC.
Hello. Is that like a worldwide thing? I can't believe it's not butter, or only the UK?
No, I think that's really British.
I was gonna say that's not gonna make any sense, anyways.
Yeah. We've got just below the knee, your toe, above your knee, toe, knee.
I could do this today. Well, hello, because he's not here. He's on a cruise ship.
But I've done it in the chair. Man, you could take that out of context. Right, we have the troublemaker who's only half on camera because he's shy, Kalyn.
Say hello.
Hello.
There you go.
Oh no, he's in full. That's weird. His camera just. It sounded like I said Kalyn. Yeah, that's it. I did try and say your name right. We've also got Sean.
Hey.
And we've got Big D.
What's up, Big D? Look at Jack. Jack's trying to beat down with the Americans. Yeah. It's not
this show is. If it weren't for Bradders, this show would be really white. So anyway.
I want to know why everyone's wearing green. Have you purposely worn green?
They're trying to tell you how clean flight.
It
looks like a boy band.
Hey, I like Dom. Dom's cool.
I like Dom.
Yeah, Dom's a cool guy.
Yeah, he is. And he's done so much the hobby.
Yeah, and I like him because he's kind of a dick. And at least you know where you stand when you're working with people who are dicks. Like that's the.
It was a big dick off with him and RoboCop. Time Cop. That's it. That's his name. It's a big dick off. God bless them. So, are we allowed to mention the R word or not? This is slightly what I'm confused at.
Raceflight?
Yeah.
We can mention it.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Bradders was like, don't mention it. And I was like, okay. What
but
the
we
hell?
We have to mention it.
Yeah. We've been after chatting to you for ages, being like, thank you, because I'm a massive Kiss fan, and I'm not being funny. There was like this little wobble on Raceflight on everyone's quad, and I was like, I don't get, if you want free blowjobs, Tony fucking loved you, man. Bradders and Tony were all up on Raceflight, and I was like, I don't get it.
The funny thing is,
Your internet has died.
Tim. Yeah, Tim, you sound like a robot. Switch to mobile communications.
No. No.
Bright audio only if it's.
I'm gonna rejoin.
Okay. Now, as soon as he said, I'm going to rejoin, he sounded lovely. Anyone would like to commence what he was saying? Rather than 001101.
I think it was saying that.
Shit.
Great comment, Kalyn. I feel like
I was trying to make a hookers and blow sort of joke with Rudolph Kalman.
Yeah, that's fine. Carry on as you were, Big D.
Oh no, I'm good. It ruined it. My internet was dumb.
Damn it. Right, so
I feel like there is a distinction that we need to make really quick. We're not actually the guys behind Butterflight. We're Helio.
Kind of are. We helped develop it, but we're not actually part of the team. We're not the owners of it.
Yeah.
So what is your guys' role? in this then? Is it regarding the flight controller?
It's regarding the code that's on the F3, the IMUF.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, so our board is designed with a coprocessor, an F3 and an F4. The F3 is mostly what we code on, and it's a filter that filters the gyro. And then it passes that data to the F4, where you're going to have flight code, like Butterflight on it. And it can work with more than just Butterflight, but Butterflight is what people are accustomed with on our board because it ships with Butterflight.
So, so I tried Butterflight for the last time. For the last time I flew, I tried Butterflight, and I did think it was better than Betaflight, and I said it on my video as well. And like it's a really sort of like a small difference. The biggest difference I noticed was the reduction of prop wash oscillation. So my question is like, why is that? What is different about Butterflight than Betaflight that makes it better at that?
Did you want to take that?
No comment. Kalyn.
Any one of you, because like the dead silence is amazing for the.
I completely missed that. My volume is chopping up there. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Kalyn. I was asking. I flew Betaflight this week. Sorry, Butterflight. I'm getting them mixed up. I flew Butterflight this week, and the prop wash oscillations were much better than Betaflight. I just wanted to know why that is.
Oh, well, I honestly, I think it's the filtering. That's the majority of it there. I think there are some other small changes that help a lot, like the PID. Inside the PID controller, we have a different method of filtering D-term, and I think that also helps quite a bit. Instead of filtering the gyro data coming into the D-term, since we already do it, we don't need to do it twice. Instead, we filter D-term itself, the delta for D, which is, in my opinion, a much better way of handling it. And it helps tremendously with prop wash.
So it was my understanding that like this Kalyn filter had to be on an F4 board, but we're talking about it working on F3 board. So how does that work?
So the reason why we can do it on an F3 is we have total control of what's going on, and we don't actually have a lot going on as far as a real-time system is concerned. Something like Betaflight, Butterflight, you have so much going on. You have the PID controller, you have the mixer, you have the all your different features running, your OSD, your radio coming in. And on the F3, all we have to worry about is getting the data from the gyro, modifying that data through the filter, and then sending it back to the F4. And as far as real time is concerned, we just have two major events to worry about. And that means we can end up using way more than just 50 or 60% of the processor and not have any issue. We can run close to 100% and still be able to pull off a real-time system.
Yeah, because I remember Josh, when he first talked about this Kalyn filter, he said it has to be on an F4 and F3s are completely out and it has to run at 32 kilohertz. So are you saying that's not the case? You can run at lower PID loop frequencies and still get better results?
So I think what you is probably saying is that the F4 code itself, or not the F4, the flight code itself, and the filtering has to happen on the F4 because it's just not enough to do it on an F3 with everything. But because we've separated it, because we've said, all right, we're going to take out the filtering, and now there's no filtering happening in Butterflight. Because it's dual core, essentially now, we run all the filtering on one core, so we could actually do that. We run at 32 kilohertz regardless of what you choose your PID loop at. So it executes at 32K and then downsamples to whatever you requested out.
Awesome. So is this a completely like new way of thinking compared to what Raceflight was doing?
Yeah, it's a new way of thinking. Like it's kind of like a computer science concept of trying to encapsulate different parts and separate them out and using extra processing power that wasn't there to do something that we weren't able to do before without overclocking. And so this is an entirely like new concept, kind of an innovative and revolutionary idea.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of people switching to Butterflight now and them finding similar to me. And I think it's just that I guess it's kind of like the transition from clean flight to Betaflight, and it's sort of going to have a bit of like tug of war kind of thing. And yeah, it's interesting, especially. I mean, I think whoever's going to be the most popular is just the one that flies the best. And that was Betaflight when it was Betaflight and Clean Flight. But I have to say, at the moment, between the two, Butterflight is it's doing it for me. So whatever you're doing, it's working for me.
You're gonna love the next iteration then, because it's something that we've been working on. Odin on top of a new PID controller, which we just I'm actually working on right now, just kind of refactoring it and cleaning it up a little bit in Butterflight that fixes some of the issues that we've noticed with certain types of quads, like especially with 6-inch quads, ones that have more frame resonance. The Betaflight got around it by adding a whole bunch of filtering. Like you can add notch filters all day long, and you can just do all kinds of stuff because there's like 7 different filters in there. But that was a band-aid for the frame resonance issue that was exacerbated by the PID controller. And so we've actually just fixed that. And I was up to like 2 a.m. last night testing it with our pilot, and it's freaking amazing. It's really good.
So would that be good on a X class?
I believe so. Absolutely.
I might have to try it on my X class then.
So where does that leave people with only one gyro? And say like people running just an F3 board? Are we screwed?
What we're going to do is we're going to try to put whatever we can into Butterflight so that anyone can use it. Yeah. But it's just the amount of stuff that we are doing on the F3 by itself, just that one board on Helio, like it's not possible to run on any other chip. It's just, even an F7 wouldn't be able to handle everything that we're doing.
Okay.
Wow. So the main reasoning behind that is basically a part is not necessarily worth, how do I phrase that? 2 smaller CPUs can outperform 1 larger CPU in a real-time system because you can have 2 real-time processes happening at the same time. So that's why the megahertz don't add up to what an F7 can do. Because we can do 2 things at the same time that must happen at or near the same time, that's how come we can actually get better performance out of an F4 plus an F3 than you can even out of the H7, which is a 400 megahertz processor. You just do so much more at once.
Well, you're dividing the load from what I can gather.
It's kind of like what computers did, isn't it? Back in the day, they started adding more processors and cores and stuff like that. I guess it's like a multi-threading kind of stuff. So yeah, that's going to be really specific to hardware then, isn't it? Because one thing that I think is amazing about Betaflight, Clean Flight, Butterflight, whatever, is like there are so many boards that will just work with it. And yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see how you guys implement that. Do you guys have any sort of relationship with Betaflight back and forth, or is it just completely separate because Betaflight's open source, and or are there sort of ideas that are likely to be shared between the two?
Butterflight is a fork of Betaflight, and it's open source. The only difference was that they just had a different philosophy. Betaflight, they kind of didn't like the fact that we have a closed source portion, which is the IMF code itself. Yeah. And even though it's perfectly fine, it's perfectly acceptable with the GPL, they just decided that they didn't want to support it. So we were going to ship with a kind of like what the Radix does. It's got its own version of Betaflight, or so there's a couple of other flight controllers that all have their own forks, and we were going to do that as well. But then Butterflight came along, and what they were doing was in line with what we wanted to do anyways. And so and we like them. They're pretty cool guys. Chris and Lucas are both fantastic to work with. So we just decided, you know what, this is perfect. This is a perfect opportunity for marketing and for helping out the community and moving the hobby forward. And we kind of felt like Betaflight was becoming stale. Like the last thing that they added was the dynamic notch, and past that, there really hasn't been much in the way of innovation.
Because wasn't the original idea to put this in Betaflight, like the common filter, and then they backtracked and they said, no, our filter does essentially the same thing, doesn't use as much processing. What are your comments towards that, or have I misunderstood what happened there?
So, yes, you're talking about biquad plus fur. And so what they did is they said, hey, this thing converges after so many cycles to pretty much a low-pass filter, because we're using static variables and things like that don't change. And so it converges to a point. And their argument is okay from like a math perspective if you don't dig into it very far. And so they were saying like, hey, this biquad plus fur thing is really the same as the fast Kalman filter, but they took out the Kalman gain equation, and they're like, oh, okay, well, this runs faster now. And they'd show graphs like, and it converges anyways, so these two things are the same and it runs faster. But that Kalman gain equation is just a one-step predictor. So like the convergence was kind of overemphasized. Like Kalman gain at each step takes in a rating, and it says, okay, like adjust the measurement and the prediction this much. And they were saying, well, let's just use a static variable for that, and we will just have this much prediction and this much of the actual measurement every time. And so users kind of noticed that, and I think that was really kind of the big push off for Butterflight. Like Butterflight came from a community of people that noticed that they didn't like biquad plus fur, even though they couldn't describe it mathematically. They didn't like it as much. And so they asked for the fast Kalman filter to be used as a CLI command in Betaflight. And when that was like heavily rejected, they separated to make their own group so that they could have a little bit more say of what goes into the code.
Yeah, and then that's what Butterflight became. I mean, I first got interested in it when Joshua Bardwell he did a video, didn't he, where it was like Butterflight versus Betaflight, and he basically said that he couldn't tell much difference in the footage. And when I watched it, his footage, I could tell quite a bit of difference in the way that it handled corners. And I guess I don't know if you guys saw that video, but I'm gonna guess you agree with me that the Butterflight flight that he did looked smoother and better and less oscillations. That's what I thought, anyways.
Was that the one where he was like, you know, this is, you know, still, no, actually, that was something else, don't worry.
No, he did a video.
Turned the quad upside down and everything, and this is still in development.
No, I don't think so. He basically did 2 flights, and he said, I can't tell the difference. In some cases, Betaflight is better. In some cases, Butterflight is better. But and then you look in all the comments, and pretty much every single person was like, no, I can see that Butterflight is acting better. And that's the thing that got my attention, especially when sort of, I know Josh is I wouldn't say he's biased towards Betaflight, but he's heavily invested in it, isn't he? And, you know.
He's got a flight controller running off, isn't he?
Yeah, so that's what got me interested in it. But yeah, I like it. I like it as well, because that's what I wanted to ask. I like it because the interface, I haven't had to make any changes when it comes to like learning how to use.
Yeah.
Like if I go into KISS, I have to readjust myself or Raceflight or whatever. But when
What's
you go
your
in,
trousers got to do with running Kiss?
but when I go into Butterflight, like it's all the same. Is that likely to change? I mean, I know there's only a couple of options different at the moment, but are we likely to see Butterflight look completely different to Betaflight at some point?
I think that's a pretty strong possibility, but you know, like Sean mentioned earlier, that's not completely up to us. That's up to the owners, who's Lucas and Chris. But I would imagine.
Okay. So you're not really involved in that then, Kalyn? I thought you were more involved in it for some reason, the whole Butterflight thing.
Well, we're definitely involved. It's just not our decision. I mean, we work very well with each other when we're.
Oh, has he gone?
I think we've lost him.
Frozen.
Oh, yeah. If he comes back. I know the internet's been sucky around here, so
it was under my impression that Kalyn had all this goodness that he had from like Raceflight, and for whatever reason, you know, wanted to part ways, and so I thought that was where Butterflight came from, but it seems not the case that much.
If he comes back, I do want to ask like what happened with that, guys. Where do you stand on like? You're probably going to hate me, but like, where do you guys stand on legacy stuff? Because like, it seems like what you're doing is like releasing something open source, but it's not really open source because you've got proprietary, you know, you got like proprietary code for like a board that in order to like get the full package of Butterfly, you've got to have your hardware.
Yeah, it's just that it's there's not enough hardware on legacy stuff in order to be able to execute what we are doing in the Helio board. It's just like any other thing that has come out. You know, you think about computers. You bought an old computer, and then 6 months later, something twice as fast came out, and it's like, oh crap. Well,
yeah, like
that's kind of what happened. But the difference here is that we're doing everything we can to try to support that as long as possible, right? Like we're actually looking through the code and seeing what can we add to the code from IMUF.
Yeah. Huh? Implement.
Yes. Yeah. Whatever we can implement into the code within Beta or Butterflight from IMUF that will run, we'll do it. But the capabilities of IMUF are far superior to just running a single F4. We're able to perform really unique analysis across all 3 axes that you can't do on just a typical F4 board.
So
but you get some of the benefit. We can still do some of the things that we're doing, right? Like the initial thing was the fast Kalman. We open sourced that, then we released Helio. We didn't just like make this thing and then say and then at the same time we also want to license it out to other OEMs, and we actually have a few that we're working with right now as far as getting a few different products launched, which will be licensing the IMUF technology for new flight controllers.
Yeah, a question I wanted to ask is like, there's a lot of like cloning and copying and stuff like that goes on with these flight controllers. Is it possible? I mean, it might seem like a daft question to you, but it's like one that I think a lot of people are probably wondering. Is that something that can be copied easily, and like we'll start to see potentially copies of this, like they've just taken a board, copied it, and it'll just work with Butterfly, or is there going to be like a license there that stops that from being able to occur, sort of thing?
Yeah, so we have implemented some DRM into our chip. You won't see clones anytime soon. They can't actually access the code that's on the chip. It self-updates, and it's just like any other IMU, right? Like any other gyro, basically. But the point is, because there's some DRM involved in that, we can license it out similar to the way that BL Heli 32 licenses it out to other licenses their firmware out to other.
Yeah, so they could basically buy the chip then technically and like build their own version of that flight controller, but you get money off the back of that sort of thing.
Is the lockout with serial numbers or just?
Yeah. Jack's in the back now. He's got someone trying to copy it as we're speaking, looking for clues.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so it's locked to the chip. It's locked to the chip. It's going to take them a long time to figure out how it works. It's very obfuscated and encrypted. If you ever have worked with DRM or things before, this is pretty unique to what we're doing.
They'd have to know a lot about prime numbers to get in there.
Yeah.
Kalyn, so what happened with you? Like, what broke down with Raceflight? You know, other than from what I can clearly gather, this is how I imagine it. You were in some sort of like cage, and he would like poke you with a stick and like feed you now again, and then code would come out, and like you were rewriting everything, and then one day you kind of gnawed your way out, and then you like released the code on the internet, and then like poo went flinging everywhere and kind of got in a few people's mouths and eyes and stuff, and then you've been running around on fire ever since, and then Butterflight got hold of you.
This sounds very similar to my situation with you, Jack.
Yeah. Shut up, Andy.
Sorry.
You'll get the stick again.
Well, I don't want to talk too much about it since there's an ongoing legal battle.
I gather that.
The gist of it is I sold Raceflight to Honorary Development, which is the company that currently owns it. And the owners of Honorary Development are Tim, Sean, and myself. And so...
Can you sell things to yourself?
Yeah, well, it sold it to the company. Yes, you can.
Yeah, no worries.
License it, sell it. I don't know the exact terminology, but, we had a lawyer for us to make sure it was done correctly. And...
can I sell Andy RC to you? I'll give you Tony if you want.
Don't you think that's such a shame that it's a hobby, isn't it? And it's meant to be fun, and like sometimes when it gets serious, I think it's such a shame. But I understand why. But it's no, thanks for sharing that information, because I think everybody wants to know, but it's a sensitive subject, because this is people's art, isn't it? So it's that's what it is to me, and it's like, trying to make sure that everyone gets the right credit and stuff getting stolen. Why is that happening? And something that's meant to be fun, it's beyond me.
Well, it's because there's a ton of money in this hobby. People think like, oh, it's just fun, and there's a lot of open source stuff, and yes, but you look at the actual numbers, the money that is in this industry, it's a real industry. It's billions of dollars in this industry. There's
going to China.
We haven't seen any of it.
Yeah, I don't see much of it.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah, but that's the thing is, in order to get that money, and even the retailers have a hard time. I know they have a hard time because internet sales and brick and mortar stores and all that stuff. But the OEMs, I mean, this stuff comes out of everything comes out of China.
Oh, God damn it, Big D, your internet's taking a poo again.
Ever since that dust storm, the internet's been acting up around Phoenix.
Oh wow.
Oh, Tim, are you there? Tim?
Tim? Out.
Do you know what? Do you know what we've not done, Jack? We've not this.
My internet.
It's a telling that Andrew's not here. We haven't done any shout outs. We haven't done any questions from the chat.
I've listed them. We can quick fire them off. Okay. All right, Tony, do a shout out. He loves doing it. He's like, look. I literally went there and I saw him at Mini Air Show 4, and he was just like, he was rubbing his nipples in his tent, and he was like, everyone here has come to see me.
Who said that, Tony?
Yeah, Tony. And I was like, is Vaseline really necessary? And he was like, maybe if you open my car door at 5 a.m. again and set off the alarm.
These guys have no idea what they've wandered into here.
No, I'm really proud of Kalyn. Thank you so much for coming on, like, Let's Drone Out, because I heard a rumor like this is the podcast you wanted to be on, and for the record, like, no one wanted to kill you because of Raceflight. We just really wanted to know what was going on, and like the roasting and japing is all in good fun. And
I loved Raceflight. I loved Raceflight for free
blowjobs, boys.
For freestyle, not for racing.
Raceflight had one major drawback, and that was it had one primary.
The Revo?
Well,
Preston was running it.
The biggest problem that I'm going to talk about, at least, is that it was just me doing the programming, and there was little to no.
Get back in that cage. Sorry,
I think Jack's going to need a lawyer after this.
Can't we mute him? Can't we mute
Carry
him?
on. It was just you, yeah.
Sorry, Kalyn, carry on.
I think we might have lost
him. Is he
him.
frozen?
I think we've lost him.
He was laughing.
No, he's ignored. He's stopped because.
Or he's pretending. Yeah, you're back.
There we go.
Sorry, it's internet again. Yeah, the big difference now with Helio is, it's a team of three. It's Sean, Tim, myself. We all have strengths and we all have weaknesses, and we all end up working extremely well with each other. We have code reviews. We all understand what's going on in the project. We talk about it constantly, and that's why things progressing so quickly. If Raceflight had that, it would have been a whole different story than what it is now. But, now we have Helio. So good. Be on the lookout for really good things.
Yeah.
Sounds interesting.
You guys kind of know like Kalyn's pedigree because he's been in the community for a long time. But Tim is also a very well-established software engineer in other communities. He's got more than a decade of experience. In fact, at General Motors, he's a principal developer there.
Wow.
That's cool. Until I just recently left.
You know you're on camera, right? You know, the whole flossing teeth, or you like gnawing through wires.
He's just like, oh man.
Oh, this isn't a podcast?
Yeah, like even yeah, man, it's like on the internet.
Oh, you're going video. Okay. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I was just saying, like.
Yeah, you've got.
I didn't realize it was going to be on camera. I thought this was a podcast.
There's a little symbol that says live right there.
You've got 6.
I thought it would give it away.
Oh my gosh, it is live.
I saw these little things pop up. Little things pop up. They're like little questions or something.
Oh yeah, there's a question from the YouTube. So we've got, I think, about 60 people watching on YouTube at the moment. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll keep flossing then. That's fine. I'll just keep doing that.
No one's actually complained in the right. So let me fill you in. Right, hang on. Oh no, Zed.
It's in very low definition, so don't worry about it. I thought you were trying to eat your headphone cable away, which makes a lot more sense. Like, make it stop.
Right. So guys, that link there is the chat. So there's people in the chat, and you can write things, and people can ask questions. Like for instance, when I screamed, "Kalyn, get back in the cage," Frostbite said, "Jack, please shut up and let them talk."
Good on you, Frostbite.
Even though, like, we asked a question earlier on, and then you guys just sat there for a while. But that's Let's Drone Out. Apparently Tony's like obsessed lately with ruining my good name. He says I lie. I says I repair things and then don't get back to him.
You do lie a lot.
Yeah, of course.
Well, he's British, so right.
Yeah, I play the evil bad guy.
Just about.
Yeah, the station. Sorry, do you want to run through the? Do you want to run? And we take the questions and then we paste it into the little chat thing so that we don't miss any. Basically,
someone asked in the chat about the Butterflight motors. Can any of you guys comment on that? Have you had any input in any of that?
No, we didn't. They actually, like we mentioned before, Butterflight is separate from Helio.
Okay.
And actually, we're going to end up releasing our own motors here in a limited run. They're very special motors, but we don't really plan on making a ton of other products other than flight controller and flight controller software, because as soon as you expand into those things, then it becomes a nightmare to manage, and it becomes more difficult. And we're software engineers. We like doing this stuff. We don't like building other ancillary products. We're going to partner with others in order to do some of those things, but we're not going to be like, hey, if you get the Helio thing, like, we do it better than X person who just made it for us. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
So where, like, because we're in the UK, so is there anywhere that we're going to be able to buy the Helio from? Like, do you know anything about like distribution and stuff, and what retailers are going to stock it and stuff like that?
I think Hogwarts might stock it.
Well, I want to buy one. I want to buy one and check it out on the channel to see.
Yeah, man.
Hobby RC.
Oh yeah,
oh, good. Yeah, they're good.
Yeah, I know Hobby RC.
They should have them, or if they don't have them, they should be getting them soon. Drone FPV Racer. The guys in Germany, like, they wanted us first. Like, we kind of felt like you know, these hot German chicks just kind of wanted to get all over, you know, Sean and Kalyn.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
And, FlyingMachines.day was one of our first customers, and there was another German company that was another very early customer. The Europe has been really good for flight controller sales, and we've done really well in Europe.
Yeah, I think that's probably because, like, in Europe, like, we are using Betaflight. Like, anyone I speak to is Betaflight. When we had Preston on the show, and like, we asked everyone who was here who was using Raceflight, and I think it was just Tony. It didn't reach over here that much. Like, but I've already tried Butterflight, and I think because a lot of people in Europe are using Betaflight anyways, and if it's better, they will just switch to which is the best. So I'm not surprised by that. Betaflight is like the main thing over here, and then probably KISS after that, I would say.
Okay.
Richard Warwick asked in the chat, will there be a 20x20 FC board for micros?
It's a good one.
We've considered it.
Do you want to run through the questions in the chat? Question to the boys: how many developers are working on Butterflight, and what are the chances of them getting bored and moving on, and the code stagnating? I.e., what's the
commitment to it?
Yeah, what's the commitment to it? Sorry, I couldn't read that.
I can tell you we are heavily invested in it, as well as APOC and Lucas, Loose Transistor. There's a couple of other guys who are also heavily invested in it. So you're looking about, I'd probably say, including the community, probably about 10 core solid developers that are constantly helping and looking for issues and adding improvements and things like that. You can look at the commit history and the PRs. I think there's 12 open PRs right now. I actually just opened one for the new PID controller last night, and there's I don't think it's going to go anywhere. It's not going to go anywhere. And once, you know, another flight controller software just sort of fades into the obscurity that is beta. I mean, I didn't say that, but when it fades into obscurity, then you're going to see more and more Butterflight. I think Betaflight was cool. New ideas and new features and new things thrown in there, and what can we make this thing do? But then it sort of devolved into a bunch of mental masturbation for certain people. So
you come to the right podcast. Okay, next question. Why did they TM the brand?
Which brand? Because APOC and Lucas trademarked Butterflight, and we've trademarked Helio.
Yeah. There's a lot of people using Betaflight brand unlicensed. There was another question. How much did you sell it for? I think that's Raceflight.
Oh, how much? I'm going to keep that between the three of us.
Okay, no worries.
Good answer.
What will be the difference between Betaflight and Butterflight and Helio? What will be the difference in price between Betaflight, Butterflight, and the Helio?
Well, Butterflight and Betaflight are free.
Yeah.
I think they mean the boards,
yeah.
as in the actual price of the boards, yeah, between Raceflight and the Helio.
So, when it comes to the actual architecture that's on Helio, we've tried to keep it as competitive as possible. We realize that that it's a tough market to compete in when you don't have something special to offer. So that's why it's so easy to clone boards, right? Because there's nothing that's preventing that. You can just go make something cheaper, looks the same, flies almost identical, may break after 4 or 5 flights, but it was 12 cents. So there's a little bit of difference in there with Helio, but the thing is, you're also going to end up with other OEMs making their own boards. So then it's just going to wildly vary. You'll be able to support whoever you want and still be able to get all the benefits that we provide with our firmware. Because that's essentially what we did, is we created a new gyro. It is a gyro plus MCU, but it can go on anything.
Yeah. On that note, the F7 boards, I think some of them are kind of wildly overpriced, and we do have more value than just an F4. And so F4 boards were probably a little bit more expensive than that, but we're not wildly overpriced like $60 or $70 for an F7 board.
And we're in the F7. So I think, you just can't beat it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. The F7's been around for a while, and it's not taken off like the F4, has it? So it must be maybe the price.
I think it was the development, pin-out boards and stuff. They were quite hard to get hold of for a while. I'm not too sure. I forget now. There was some sort of development problem with them.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was hard to get chips to manufacture in large bunches, and they had to change Betaflight. They had to go in Betaflight and optimize the code to work on an F7.
Yeah.
And so they've started that work now, optimizing the code to work on an F7, but I'm not even sure if you go in and do their nightly release build, if it's better to run it on an F4 or F7. It's kind of a gray area right now.
Yeah,
even though the F7 has more compute.
Yeah, and wasn't there architecture problems as well or something? And they were having to strip out legacy shit and all sorts.
So something that's kind of interesting, I think, is people don't realize how long the F4 has actually been out for. The first F4 that I'm aware of in a flight controller, at least one that was fairly popular, was the Open Pilot Revo, or the Revolution.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that actually
Revo board. Oh, have we lost Kalyn? No.
Who's the picture of the dog? Is that Kalyn as well?
That's Kalyn. That's Cruiser.
Yeah,
That's
it's funny. I received one of those boards, and yeah, I was surprised to see it was an F4. I received like a prototype Alien Wii board that was an F4 years ago. So yeah, it's been around for a while, and yeah, I mean, I still fly F3s for the most part because I find that the F4 boards, they're a bit tricky with the they don't have the inversion, and it can be an absolute pain sometimes if you're not aware of all the parts that you've bought and what inversion you should have, and if your telemetry is inverted and which should go on smart audio.
I'm putting a Butterflight on a Revo board at the moment.
So here's the thing that holds them back is really just flash size, the F3s. The amount of flash that's on them, because the F3 and the F4 are not really that much different in terms of speed. You can still run F3s 192, 168, which is stock for an F4. And
they have the same processor.
Smaller. Huh?
They actually have the same processor. The F3 and the F4 use the same processor. It's just the package is different.
Yeah, and the DMAs. There's less DMAs on the F3 than there are on the F4. So so when it comes to it, like being capability wise, right? The F3 is not a chump. The F3 is actually very capable, but the problem is the code that's out there in Betaflight and in Butterflight. And this is something that Dominic has mentioned quite a bit, as far as like he more or less focuses on the cleanliness of the code, but I'm kind of a performance curmudgeon. And so I refactored a couple of things within Butterflight, and just one small refactor, which didn't change anything other than to change the way the code operated, saved 1.5K of flash storage. And on an F3, that's huge because it only has 32K. So you can add more features. You can add more things to it. But I would say there's kind of a opinion floating around within the Betaflight groups that their code doesn't have problems, but in essence it does.
I would like to give an example of the code. Something that I really can't stand, I have a problem with, is just flipping a pin. In our code, for example, in the F3, we flip the bit. We directly access the register on the processor to flip the bit, which flips the pin status from high to low. And that takes probably around 2 or 3 clock cycles to actually do, in which, whereas Betaflight uses a hardware abstraction layer that makes it easier to develop, but it's ridiculously slow at some things. For example, I did a calculation. It takes around between 100 and 200 clock cycles to flip a pin on Betaflight, as opposed to our 2 to 3 clock cycles on the F3. So it's a pretty major difference in some circumstances.
Right, got you. So a lot of questions are about Butterflights. I don't know whether you're going to know the answer, but someone's asked how many developers are working on Butterflight. Like, I always get this impression because there's so many updates on Betaflight. Like, you log into it and there's a new one. I always get the impression that they've got so many developers. I don't know if you know if that's true and how many are working on Butterflight.
So in my opinion, the reason a lot of open source projects get updates really frequently is because a lot of software engineers, and this is true for any open source project that's big, it's either backed by a company, which means that they're going to pay their developers to do something, or they're out of work developers.
Right. Okay, so they're just sort of stewing there and just like tinkering with stuff and changing stuff. Yeah.
Is there going to be any more filters coming out, like the fast Kalyn filter? Is there going to be an even faster one? Are you working on anything more?
So once we finish Odin, and once we finished optimizing some of the things that we're doing, we have some plans to release some kind of like minimize older versions of what we've developed that should work on every F4.
Cool.
Yeah. So our Helio board this month is releasing a new version of R filtering, and it's pretty exciting. The amount of we save tons of processor time on it, and it's like an exponential, like it would have been 7 times greater or 60 times greater at different window sizes in our filter than we're using now in the new filter that we're going to release in this month.
Wow.
So how does it work in conjunction with like the new Butterflight releases? So let's say like a new version of Butterflight comes out, but if you're updating your flight controller all the time, does that mean that you have to release it on the current release of Butterflight, or do you have your own sort of version running for it that runs separate to Butterflight?
It's the way that it's set up is we can actually run releases any way we want, anytime we want. We updated the UI to be able to pull from our repository, so anytime we release a new version of our software, it's mostly going to be whatever the latest stuff is that's in Betaflight or Butterflight. Even I say it wrong.
I keep getting it mixed up because it's so similar.
Yeah. Any of the new stuff that's in Butterflight will be on Helio, plus you'll probably get some other stuff that may not even be merged into master or in the latest release yet anyway, because we want to make sure that it's the experience is optimized for anyone buying our board. We take a lot of time and effort into testing and making sure that stuff is stable before we release it widespread. Unlike some other entities who decide to just release 100 new versions within a month. So we're not those people. We want it to be stable. And you know what? If there's an RC out there and it flies better than what you got, great. If it doesn't, don't upgrade. Like, oh, this RC, I put it on my board and the previous version worked great. Awesome, let us know. Then downgrade. Stay on the version that works for you. You don't have, just because something is upgraded and new doesn't mean that it like has to be upgraded when it's not a full release yet.
Yeah, so I take it, does it have its own GitHub, and is that where you get the latest like hex, I guess you would say? Is that how it works? Yeah, and that's it. So yeah, if you get like, so
There's
I
a
take
link on the page.
this may sound like a stupid question. I take it there's not going to be a target in Betaflight for it that just like runs like a standard flight controller. It's just purely Butterflight that you can run on this flight controller. Yeah.
We do have a Betaflight version that we were going to ship with, but we just haven't updated it yet. We've been working on Inav because it's on the site. You can actually download it. It's version 3.3. But we've been working on Inav and a couple of other things first. Right. So to kind of button down the hatches, because if you know Betaflight, you know Butterflight. It's not that big of a difference. Sure. And then with Inav, that's a whole other target audience. You know, it's people with fixed wings and things that, and even quadcopters, right? But that's what we wanted to do, is kind of open up that other side of the market and give more people access to what they're used to using.
Yeah, cool, awesome.
I have test stuff right behind me there.
Are you allowed to? You've got, what was that, test stuff? Did you say?
Yeah, I've got a Hex just behind me and the Mini Sky Hunter, and I also have a couple other airplanes in my kitchen right now. You can't see that are getting ready for some Inav plus Helio love. So wow. I'm really looking forward to that. I
really need to. I have not even checked out Inav, but we have a reviewer over here, Painless 360, does a lot of stuff in Inav. So yeah, I need to get onto that. But I think we're coming up to the hour. Are we, Jack? Are we ready to wrap up with these guys? I can't hear. You got your mic.
You're muted, Jack.
You're muted, Jack.
Everyone's laughing in chat because I put Tony in timeout for 30 seconds.
Why have you done that?
Because he claimed that I wanted to see Rich's bum.
I wouldn't put it past you.
No, I'm all right. Yeah, guys, thank you for coming on. I thought you'd be more Butterflight, but I'm glad you're helping Constantine on the old Inav though, because I'm a big supporter of Inav. I really like the stuff. And everyone's favourite. I've got one more last question. MF Boone. Any chance we'll see AIOFC with built-in ESCs?
We're not working on that right now. We are releasing a PDB version of our board, but we're not planning on working on anything with ESCs integrated into the board.
Okay. Also, Wayne, yeah, Falling with Style. Yep. Me and Andy RC will be doing some big gay farming on Twitch.
Will we?
Yeah. Are you up for? Are you up for?
I can probably do it an hour.
Yeah. We're gonna. So the link's there. Is that the? Hang on. Let me just present to everyone. What are you showing us?
What's that? Present quick.
I am.
Quick, take a screenshot.
PDB.
This is my terrible soldering skills.
Clone it.
There you go. Well, we posted pictures of it online, but there's a PDB version.
Have we got any clue when it's coming to Hobby RC, the Helio board? Any dates?
Yeah.
I don't know how time works in Middle Earth, so I'm not sure what to say.
It could already be there, Tony. We'll have to take a look.
No, we've just had a look, and it's not there at the moment. And remember, everything runs off GMT.
Yeah, just
that's not G and T, as in, you know, the drink.
We're on BST right now, Tony.
Oh, okay.
Well, my postman throws everything in the river, so probably
my postman puts it in a safe place for me and signs that I'm there. I love my postman.
That's even worse. That's illegal, Tony.
Yeah.
I'm not going to mention his name, but he's brilliant.
Tony is not only the size of a hobbit, he also has hairy feet. Right. You've been listening to Let's Drone Out. If you want to continue with us for an extra hour whilst we do some big gay farming, my link in the Twitch is there.
I have not anything to do with big gay farming.
You are, because I've named my cat after you in Stardew Valley.
For God's sake.
His name's Tony. I kick him every night. Tony's wrong Earth, by the way. The Earth is round. And apparently China is watching. You've been listening to Let's Drone Out. You've been joined by Andy RC.
Hello, thanks for listening and watching. Goodbye.
Kalyn as a dog that's constantly muted. We've got IRL Kalyn.
Hello.
I'll make fun of a mute dog.
Yep. Yep. The exile of Raceflight. We've got Sean.
Hey.
Technically, it's the other way around.
Yeah, it's the other way around.
Everybody sees it differently.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got flossing Big D.
Yeah. Gotta keep my teeth clean.
Hyperlight flossing.
Yeah, that's it. And we've got the Middle Earth Munchkin Tony.
Bonjour.
And you've also got Bright Until I Fly or Jack or Tony's big pain in the ass. So see you over in
get some cream for that.
Yep. See you over in Twitch in a bit, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Go over to Twitch, ask us questions, follow, like, subscribe.
Thank all our Patreons.
Thank our Patreons.
Thanks for having us on.
Yep, not a problem. You're welcome anytime. Anyone who messes with Raceflight is all right with me. Good night.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.